OpenAI's Sam Altman reassures Congress by saying, if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong. CISOs feel that their companies are likely to be attacked in the next year, and a database named Cockroach aims to solve the problems of moving between cloud providers. Those top tech news stories and more for Wednesday, May the 17th, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Love, CIO of IT World Canada and Tech News Day in the US. OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman, along with a number of other tech experts, addressed the US Congress on Tuesday. Altman struck a cooperative tone, appearing to try to avoid the confrontational one of previous hearings where big tech executives had their feet held to the fire with aggressive questioning. He acknowledged the need for oversight and reportedly stated that he favors some regulation on artificial intelligence. Altman noted in one of his comments, "My worst fear is that we, the industry, cause significant harm to the world. I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong, and we want to be vocal about that and work with the government on that." This subdued and cooperative approach was noted by the legislators. Senator Dick Durbin noted that the AI industry's message was much more in the tone of "stop me before I innovate again," as opposed to social media networks who seem to not want to be held accountable at all. Not that there wasn't evidence of high levels of concern from the legislators. Subcommittee Chair Senator Richard Blumenthal, as reported in IT World Canada, said, "Congress failed to seize control over social media, and the result is predators on the internet, toxic content exploiting children. Now we have the obligation to do it on AI before the threats and risks become real." He called for sensible safeguards, which, he added, are not a burden to innovation. But Blumenthal also noted the AI industry doesn't have to wait for Congress to be proactive. But it wasn't the legislators. It was Gary Marcus, a psychology professor and founder of several AI companies, who was sounding the alarm. Fundamentally, these new systems will be destabilizing, he said. And he went on to say, current systems are not transparent, they do not adequately protect our privacy, and they continue to perpetuate bias. Even their makers don't entirely understand how they work. Most of all, we cannot remotely guarantee that they are safe. Hope here is not enough. The big tech companies' preferred plan is to say, trust us. But why should we? The sums of money at stake are mind-boggling. There were additional discussions on some of the other issues that have been raised, including the lack of transparency or auditability in AI systems, the risks to intellectual property, problems with errors and bias in data and results. And as governments of all levels work to introduce legislation and regulation, there is the acknowledgement that there's tremendous economic benefits associated with AI, and Altman pointed that out clearly. "We believe the benefits of the tools we have deployed so far outweigh the risks," he stated. But he also added, if this technology goes wrong, it can go very wrong. For an excellent summary, we'll include a link to a more in-depth coverage from our own Howard Solomon in IT World Canada. While many companies are asking employees to return to the office, some more aggressively than others, most companies are not insisting on a full return. In fact, according to Scoop Technologies, as reported in the Wall Street Journal, about 58% of the 4,500 companies it monitors allow employees to work some of the time from home. The number of companies that require full-time work in the office has shrunk from 49% to 43%. Scoop noted that the companies with hybrid strategies have employees spending on average 2.5 days per week in the office. This is having an impact on cities like New York with lower occupancy and fewer patrons for local businesses. But employers who have tried to push too hard to get employees to return to the office have found there's real pushback from their staff. Apple and Amazon have both had strong employee reactions. An article in TechSpot noted that Amazon employees raged so hard that one of its executives had to plead for calm. Scoop reports that as long as unemployment for tech workers remains low, and despite recent layoffs, it's still difficult to find good tech staff, and employers may not be able to force workers back full-time. A study from security firm Proofpoint reported that most Chief Information Security Officers, CISOs, feel that their business is at risk from a cyber attack. The study covered 1,600 CISOs from around the world. It found that 68% of those surveyed felt their organization is at risk of being attacked in the next 12 months, and 25% thought the risk was very likely. That compares with 48% the year before. While there's been an enormous attention paid to ransomware in the past, the study said that CISOs regard email compromise as their biggest threat, at 33% of those responding. Insider threat, cloud account compromises, distributed denial of service or DDoS were very close in the 29 to 30% range, and then supply chain and ransomware, both of which have been in the news, trailed at 27% each. Surprisingly, 64% of CISOs surveyed felt they could mitigate the risk of supply chain attacks. Other key surprises? 62% of CISOs were open to paying ransoms to cybercriminals to restore systems, possibly because over 71% have cyber insurance policies and 61% reported they would place a claim if attacked. But also about the same amount, 62%, felt their organization is able to detect and remove a ransomware threat before any material damage occurs. According to Proofpoint, that confidence is probably misplaced, and there's a real disconnect in the results, given that another finding of the study is that 61% of CISOs agree their organization is unprepared to deal with a targeted cyber attack. And as noted earlier, 68% feel they'll be attacked. Confused? So are we. And if CISOs really do think they can pay a ransom and get their data back, that defies many other studies that show that few companies get all their data back by paying the ransom. What CISOs are certain of is that their job has become more stressful. 49% thought they faced excessive expectations last year, and that's grown to 57% in this year's survey. That, combined with trends in regulation and a recent court case that held the former Uber CISO personally responsible, may be part of the reason why 60% of those CISOs surveyed say they have experienced burnout in the past 12 months. The US Justice Department announced Tuesday that they have indicted a number of foreign nationals who have attempted to steal sensitive US technology, including the source code for Apple's autonomous driving system. In other cases, they have pursued a Chinese national working in Southern California who allegedly has stolen source code from a smart manufacturing system used in making parts for nuclear submarines and military aircraft. The Disruptive Technology Strike Force is a joint effort between the Justice and Commerce Departments that includes 14 U.S. attorneys' offices as part of a crackdown on the theft of key technology. The crackdown comes in the wake of a number of sanctions and export controls used on countries like Russia, Iran, and even China. Assistant Attorney General Matthew Olson, head of the DOJ's National Security Division, made the government's intentions clear at a recent press conference. He said, "Let me be clear. We are committed to do all we can to prevent these advanced tools from falling into the hands of foreign adversaries who wield them in ways that threaten not only our nation's security, but democratic values everywhere." And the database known as Cockroach DB announced that it will support all three major public cloud service providers, including Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure. The company was founded by ex-Google employees with the aim of providing a fault-tolerant, serverless, distributed SQL database as a service that would support easy movement across cloud providers and even regions within the same providers. Aside from a rather unfortunate name, the company does help address issues of migration from one platform to another, whether it be moving to a new provider, repatriating workloads, or disaster recovery. Cockroach in the cloud. I don't know. It may have a certain ring to it. That's the top tech news for today. We go to air with a daily newscast 5 days a week, as well as a special weekend interview with an expert on topics relevant to today's tech news. Follow #trending on Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can even get us on your Alexa or Google smart speaker. And you can find us on YouTube, where we're called Tech News Day. We love your comments, and you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or on Mastodon as @TheRealJimLove on our Mastodon site, technews.social. Or if that's too much, just leave a comment under the text version at itworldcanada.com/podcasts, and you can find all of the links in those text versions. I'm your host, Jim Love. Have a wonderful Wednesday.